Just, yes.
Okay, my spouse is doing something.
So.
Okay,
Can Neil hit this?
Neil,
We hit this.
could you hit got it for me, please? Got it? Yes. Awesome.
All right, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to. Thank you. Welcome to the CSC Leon Governing Council meeting. Today is Thursday, February 16th, and the time is now 4:08 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. I do want to remind, we do have a couple of people here in the audience. There are multiple opportunities throughout the agenda for people to make comments. So if you would like to make a public comment, please see Ms. Clay down at the end of the table, and you can complete a comment card. And that's when it's time for those comments, we'll allow you to make a comment at that time. I do want to remind our council members, once again, if you do want to speak, just to make sure we keep order, I'm asking you all to just pull up your little tents, just to make sure I can acknowledge you all. So I want to thank you all for adhering to that. Okay, it is now time for roll call. Ms. Clay, will you please do a roll call for us today?
Judge Miller.
Here.
Mr. O'Brien.
Here.
Mr. McFadden. Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Hannah. Commissioner Cumming.
Here.
Ms. Connor.
Present.
Mitchell. Mr. Watts.
Here.
Dr. Glenn.
Yeah. All right, we have a quorum. Thank you all so very much for that. All right, it is now time for us to approve the agenda. I hope everybody had a chance to review it. Are there any changes to the agenda? All right, do I hear a second? We have a moval by Mr. Jones and a second by Ms. Connor. So everybody in favor to approve the agenda?
All right.
All right, it is now time for a general public comment. Ms. Clay, do you have any public comments?
Yes, general public comment from Mr. Field.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last month, I came up here with a message that kids can't wait. I was very happy with the comments that followed. In fact, I think Mr. Hannah was sort of the bookends at the end of the meeting with that same message. So today I'd like to raise two matters that to me are connected to that goal. First is the matter, I'm glad Mr. Mitchell is here to hear this part. The first of those related to kids can't wait is related to staffing. And it got some attention last month. I will tell you, having been a publisher and an executive at startup companies, that startups are hard. They take a lot more work. They take a lot more effort than managing an ongoing business or ongoing organization. You are building a foundation, and that's why going faster is going to need adding more staff. Maybe just one, possibly two, but I think it's going to need more staff. As you get into multi-year cycles of grants, the workload spreads out, and you can sort of moderate or flatten out those needs, but you're not going to go faster without a little more horsepower. Staff, pardon my metaphor. I know I've been a publisher. I've asked a lot of questions about staffing needs. I know the impulse. Really appreciate it. I told the parent company, you are going to spend this money. The question is whether you spend it now and get ahead of the competition or spend it later catching up to them. We did spend the money. We got ahead and we beat two larger companies, one of which was the Washington Post, which had a subsidiary that was our direct competitor. So that's point one, the need for staff. The second point is to urge you on in reviving work on a program that, in my view, got knocked off the table just at the end of a long agenda, a month or two ago. And that was regarding a proposed memorandum of understanding with the Children's Forum. The first experience any child has outside the home is with childcare. Some of you may have heard of the 30 million word gap in between the children in poor families and the children in well-off families. That study is a little bit in question in terms of the precise data and the measurement of the gap, but I think we all instinctively know that the gap is there. And one of the solutions to that is having high quality childcare with caregivers who are engaged with the children, talk to the children, and aren't there to just feed them and change their diapers. This was your highest priority. Preparing children for school, and preparing their intellectual development is so important. If you're going to support quality childcare, you need to start by knowing which programs have quality. And so I don't know anything about this program, but what I heard when Aaron Smeltzer, I'm not an advocate of saying, go do this. Just saying this needs to be back on the table. It's a program that sounds like it can move forward quickly and build the kind of foundation that you need. So I urge you or the program committee to resume an active and urgent consideration of the program and move forward with it. So thank you for letting me be the warm-up act for the PACE Center for Girls. I think some of you know I was a trustee of PACE for 8 years and then worked with them to expand their program to Georgia, Florida. So to the girls, I just want to say, I know how courageous it is for you to come and tell what happened to you and how PACE set you on a different path for your life. I really appreciate and admire what you were doing. So Madam Chair, I don't want these girls to wait, so I'll sit down. Thank you very much.
Very much, Mr. Dean. Your comments are always welcome. Thank you so very much. Ms. Clay, do we have any other public comments?
There are no more public comments.
No more public comments at this time. All right, thank you very much. All right, well, with that, we're not going to put anything in the way of hearing from these young ladies. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Green to introduce our community impact partner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we're very pleased to have PACE Center for Girls and Ms. Christelle Avilas here with us, along with 2 of the students. As you know, they were funded in our first funding cycle last summer. So
good afternoon, Chair Glenn, Vice Chair Watts, and members of the council. I'm actually going to kick us off and then hand it over to Christelle and our PACE girls. So thank you for giving us the honor of speaking with you today and for the work this council is doing to address the needs of youth in our community. I'm Jody Stevens. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for PACE Center for Girls. I know I've met many of you, and I'm excited to speak with you today about PACE and the work we're doing here in the community and our summer program that was funded by this council. And we look forward to applying again. I'm going to give a brief overview about PACE. I know many of you know us well. And then I'm going to turn it over to Christelle, and who is our Executive Director of the PACE Center in Leon, and our 2 lovely PACE ladies who participated in the summer program. PACE Center for Girls is a prevention and early intervention program. We provide the full academic school day and wraparound social services to middle and high school age girls who are at risk of systems involvement. So many of our PACE girls struggle with circumstances that are very much outside of their control. A lot of them struggle with family instability, sometimes trauma, maybe physical health challenges, mental health challenges. And when those go unaddressed, it can sometimes result in behavioral challenges or academic underachievement. So PACE focuses on addressing these underlying risk factors. We provide counseling, therapy to girls, and we also work with the girls' families to ensure that they have the services that they need. At PACE, 8 and 10 girls improved academically while they were with us, and 8 and 10 have improved healthy relationships while at PACE. We're statewide in Florida. We've recently expanded into Georgia and South Carolina, so it's very exciting. We serve about 3,500 girls a year, but here in Leon, 137 girls annually. And because of your investment last summer, we were able to enhance our summer programming here in Leon County. And we're really thrilled about that and the results of that program. So I'll hand it over to Christelle Avilas to talk about that.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I am so happy to be here and in a different leadership capacity. A lot of you all know my story. I am a PACE girl here from Leon, so it is truly still a little shaking. You might hear the rattling of my voice, even introducing myself as the Executive Director of PACE. So it is a big deal. I'm sorry. Yeah. So the summer program was very exciting for us. We were able to do things we've never done. at Pace in my 7 years there. So with the funding provided, we were able to serve over 70 families and over 100 girls. So we opened up the program to some of our transition girls. So even girls who had left the program were able to come and get tutoring. So if they just got in a bind academically and like, oh, I got back to my zone school and it's a little tough not having the wraparound services right there on hand like we do in the center. So it was really eye-opening. We got over 100 credits over the summer because of the program. So I am so excited about the program, so it might come out. But I wanted to turn it over to the girls to share their experience and just their authentic journey over summer. And Saturday mornings, we spent a lot of those together. So I have them share. Amaya? Start with you.
Well, the summer program helped me in a lot of different ways because I was struggling in most of my classes, and like having one-on-one time with my teachers really helped me and boost my grade up. So and then we get rewarded for what we have done, and they put a lot of effort in helping us. So I'm really thankful for them and thankful for the summer program. That's why I wanted that to help multiple girls at Pace.
Awesome.
Hello, I'm Shay, and the reason why I think that y'all should donate is because when I went to the summer program, I was like, how am I gonna get better? Like, how am I gonna get on track on my work? So I was like, and then my teacher started to help me more. Like, I'm like more of a one-on-one type person. So if my teacher helped me one-on-one, I'm gonna get back. I want to get back caught up on my work. So I was very behind, and my science teacher started to help me, and now I'm on track in all my classes from the school. That's why I'm thankful. And then also what Imai was saying, we get rewarded for our stuff. So that also pushed me to work harder. So that's why I think that's.
Thank you. Yes, I wanted them to share their stories with you all a little bit, but some of the things we did, we had a child psychologist come in to parent night, or parents were able to come. We went from having about 15 parents that showed up to parent night to 55 parents who were able to provide dinner. We made some significant gains overall. Mental health wise, our girls' scores went down tremendously when they did their self-efficacy scale. So just having more one-on-one and enrichment activities is really beneficial, and it gave them something to do that was productive over the summer. So yes, I really appreciate it just personally as a Pace girl myself. It really was a beneficial program just to see them come Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. So we made it work.
Thank you so very much. We appreciate it. We do have one question, and I'll entertain maybe two questions before we move forward. So
So, one, congratulations.
Thank you.
Personally, but also on the program. I'm curious about what was the dollar amount of the grant that we gave to Pace?
We got $48,000.
And the 48,000, just a quick follow-up, served how many girls?
So 70 families and 110 girls. Yes. Thank you. Yes.
So was the funds part of the family night that you all had?
Yes, it was. We had 4 family nights where we had legal aid come out, career source, and that really helped. We had some families dealing with DV and some other situations, eviction, and the legal aid was actually connected them that night, and they were able to stay in their housing.
Follow-up question, what
Yes.
grades are the young ladies in again? What grades you all in?
I'm in 9.
Thanks.
thank you. All right, one more, Mr. Jones.
Congratulations, Pace.
Thank you.
Former board member for about 18 years and have seen your maturation as a professional. And to now know that you are as director, congratulations. I'm glad to see that you continue to do the work. The relationship with the Leon County School Board is extremely in the district is important because we're referring young people to them constantly with the intent that they will then return back to their home schools, and their track record of service is just, is peerless. So congratulations on what I know will be continuing great work in collaboration with our district and also with the Children's Services Council. Congratulations on your appointment.
Yes.
And to these young ladies, what was a fantastic presentation.
Right.
Y'all did a great job.
All right, wonderful. Thank you all so very much for coming. We really appreciate you sharing your experiences and emphasizing the benefit of the program. Yes, ma'am. Is Ms. Cummings hand
Yes,
raised?
she
Ms.
has a
Cummings, allow you to comment.
Madam Chair, just briefly, I just wanted to congratulate Pace. They've always been a great partner in the community for our youth, for our girls. And I'm just so excited that they were able to participate in our grant program last summer and look forward to them participating with the Children's Services Council in the future. So I just appreciate all the hard work that they have done prior to the Children's Services Council, and I know they'll continue to do great things for our youth. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Of course. Thank you, Ms. Cummings. And once again, thank you all so very much. You all are welcome to stay and listen to the rest of the meeting, or if you would like to leave, that's totally up to you all. But thank you all so very much for sharing your story with us. All right, let's give them one more round of applause. Thanks so very much. Okay, so it is now time for us to move forward. And it is time for us to approve the consent agenda. I hope you all. All right, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do I hear a second? I hear a second from Mr. Watts. I do want to emphasize that there was one typo in the consent agenda in the minutes for the February 2nd. The meeting date that we had in there was February 19th, but it has been changed to February 16th, which is today's date. So that's the only thing that's been changed. All right, we have a motion on, yes, sir.
If I may, I'll amend my motion for approval of the minutes with appropriate correction.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Second.
And we have a second once again. All right, thank you very much. So with that, are all in favor to approve the consent agenda? All in favor? All right, sounds good. All right, so the consent agenda has been approved. All right, thank you very much. Okay, let's move on with our agenda. And now it is time for the general counsel's update. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Council members, on page 29 of your agenda packet, you will find the employment agreement for the executive director. The agreement that you see there in your packet has been approved by both the members of the executive committee and also Ms. Green. It is different from the original contract in several ways. Revised it to reflect the direction of the governing council at the December meeting, and also the input of the executive committee members. The key differences are that the term is now for 2 years. Our original contract was for 1 year. This will be a 2-year term effective January 1st, 2023, running through December 31st, 2024. Also, the evaluation process has been streamlined a bit. There were references in the original contract to presenting the evaluation instrument to seek at least 6 months in advance, giving her time to review. It's been streamlined since those materials provisions that do not apply any longer. It clarifies that she can be reimbursed for travel expenses, provided she obtains advance approval by the chair. It revises the separation pay provisions to more closely match the state of Florida policy for SMS employees, such that the severance pay is tied to her accumulated leave balances. The job description included as an appendix or exhibit has been refined. It was originally based on the job posting and therefore had references to educational qualifications, which no longer apply. That was streamlined. And then lastly, the salary provision. This agreement does away with the concept of merit increases and instead specifies that her annual salary will be $125,000. Council members may recall at the December meeting, there was discussion about whether or not that amount should be increased to reflect a cost of living adjustment. The number that I've included here so far does not include that because there was no specific direction to proceed with whatever percentage that might be. However, the council is at liberty to discuss that today and we can make any according revisions to the agreement and so on.
Okay. So, thank you very much, Mr. Rowe, for reviewing the changes. I would like to open this up for discussion, right? Well, I guess we need a motion first. So is there a motion on the table to approve this as is, or is there another motion on the table?
I move accept.
Well, second.
All right, we have a an approval, a motion by Mr. Jones, and second by Mr. Mitchell. Now we're open for discussion. Are there any discussion items? Okay, I would like to bring up a discussion item. I know that when we did have our meeting back in December, I know Mr. Bryant, you brought up the possibility of including a 3% increase for cost of living. And I just want to make sure I'm clear, because with the way this is written, with this being a 2-year proposal, Mr. Rowe, does that mean that after 2 years, there's no option for her to have that cost of living increase? Is that what is the situation?
No, she will continue to receive annual performance evaluations. And at the conclusion of that, which is now tentatively slated to be by December 1st of each year, the full board can determine whether or not to grant an adjustment, an increase at that time, be it for cost of living or anything else.
Okay,
But it's not specified as it was in the first contract. There shall be consideration of a merit increase. So that could happen at the end of this year,
okay,
and then again at the end of the second year, when it will be time to renew the contract.
okay. Thank you. So there is still the potential at the end of the year for us to include an increase. Okay, all right. Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, and Mr. Rowe, correct me if I'm wrong, but actually the board has the ability to grant her a pay increase at any point. It has to be, I mean, it has to be, considered by the board. I would suggest that there would need to be a cause, but there is nothing that in her contract that would prohibit us. If there was some exceptional performance that we wanted to reward in July, we could do it.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much for that. And I wasn't aware that we could make these changes at any point in time. That's fine. I would like for us to consider a cost of living increase at this point in time, because I know she was at the 120. I do remember that. I do believe, and I know that your opinion is different on this, but I do believe that, when we raised it, we did talk about the potential of giving her a 3% cost of living increase. And I do think we should consider that. So because when we had this discussion there at the very beginning, we said that if she did perform, she'll get the 125. So, that will increase her to the 125, which we did approve. But I do believe that based on what was promised to her, or what I felt as if was promised to her, that she does, she should receive a cost of living increase. So I would like for the council members to consider that. Yes, Mr. Jones.
I'm happy to amend my motion to accept the recommendation to also include a 3% cost of living adjustment.
Okay, so we have an amended motion. Any other discussion?
And would that be effective January 1st date, consistent with the contract?
Certainly. Just a
Please, no, go ahead.
Just a point of clarification. And maybe Council Rowe has this information in. What is the employment payment history from the beginning of Ms. Rose Green's employment? I believe it was 120 with the opportunity for a $5,000 variable comp bonus, right?
Just the way that the contract read, it was a minimum $5,000.
But we have elected not to pursue that because of difficulties doing that, right? So
We did approve to 125 back in December.
yeah, 125, but the bonus, I'm talking about the bonus piece.
That is what took us from.
I know, that's what I'm saying, but there wasn't a bonus payment. That's fine. That's right.
Okay.
Right. We just basically on a moving forward basis applied that bonus to the base, right?
But if you remember, my motion was that when we got to this point where we are today, that it would be retroactive, effective January 1, the $5,000.
So will be retroactive for the 5,000, but it still does not consider a cost of living increase. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right. And that's what I would like for us to do. Yes, Mr.
Maybe it's just for the point of discussion, since it was 120 plus what we thought was going to be a bonus opportunity of 5,000 or more for that period. What I would throw out for consideration is keeping the salary at 125, but retroing the 125 back to the inception date since the beginning of it. We thought that the total income for the period was going to be 125. We thought it was just going to be 120 plus 5,000. Does that make sense?
So you're saying retro back to the beginning of her original contract? Okay, and that will take it back to January of 2022.
I'm point of just, I put that out as a consideration. I'm trying to think through what would be fair, because I think the belief is that we were going to, as long as she performed well, she was going to be compensated at 5,000. Right?
So this is the way I look at it. So she, when she came to that meeting in November, I feel as if the conversation at that time was that we would give her 125. And then based on the recommendation, I think it was Mr. Jones' recommendation in a previous meeting that I wasn't a part of, they decided to cap the salary at 120. And then we told her, if you perform, then at the end of the year, you'll get the extra 125. So she did perform, but she's never got a cost of living increase based on her performance for the first year. So I want to make sure she gets that cost of living increase, which to me is totally separate from the $5,000 that she would have been given if she performed. So that's why I feel it's.
I'm putting that out there as a discussion. It's an alternative. This is another.
Okay. All right. So we do have a motion on the table, and I do second Mr. Jones's motion. Yeah. I'm sorry. But he amended it. So I'm sorry. Are you willing to second the amended? Okay. Okay. Yeah. So he's withdrawing his second from the amended. I am seconding the amended motion. I can't. Okay, then I can't.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I would second his motion, but just for clarification, his motion is accept the contract with the 3% increase effective back to January 1, 2023. Am I correct?
2023, that's correct.
2023. Okay,
Yes.
I'll second his motion.
So we have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion items before we vote?
So that I'm clear, we are essentially saying that Ms. Green's salary will be $125,000 a year plus the 3%.
37.5 or 37.
Right.
So any other discussion items before?
I would just throw this one thing out for consideration, and I think you all know how I feel about this for several different reasons, but I'm going to focus in on substantive reasons. When you compare what others in the community who have similar or jobs with greater responsibility in terms of I'll say greater responsibility. I think that $125,000 a year is a competitive rate, and I'll leave it with that. And that's why I can't support the motion.
Okay, no worries. And
I'm not worried.
yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. Yeah, thank you so very much for that. Okay, so given where we are with the discussion, I think it's time for us to vote on the motion that's currently on the table. Any other discussions? Yes, Mr. O'Brien.
Just one, and I think I've just for point of clarification, what we're doing now, and I think this is what we agreed to before, we are now forfeiting or eliminating the possibility for a variable components in the future.
That's correct.
So everything is, yes.
That's correct.
Yes.
But he just said that we could make or provide any additional remuneration at any time.
Raises. Those would be raises. Yes, so just a clarification, is that right? Okay, that's the correction. All right.
Any other?
Madam Chair, clarification.
Oh, sorry,
Now-
Ms. Cummings, yes.
We're eliminating the possibility of what? I didn't hear that last part.
A bonus opportunity.
I don't think, you mean a bonus opportunity at the end of this program year?
In a year. Right.
In a year? I don't believe we're doing that. That's not my understanding, that we're eliminating the possibility. Unless it's contrary to state law, Mr. Rowe. And I know one of the discussions we had was that under state law, we couldn't give a bonus, if I'm not mistaken. If somebody would correct me on that.
That is correct. It's not an elimination of the bonus because the bonus concept was never present. That was
Right.
by state law then as it is now. Prohibition is basically against paying someone for work already performed, which is a bonus. You're at liberty at any time to increase her base salary going forward, but you wouldn't ordinarily award a bonus.
That's just not really reasons.
Yeah, we just won't call it a bonus. Absolutely. Right. I'm clear, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion points? Thank you. Ms. Clay, will you please do a roll call for me?
Judge Miller,
I'll vote for the increase in the 3%.
Ms. Connor,
I as well vote for the 3%.
Commissioner Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Jones, Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yeah.
Mr. Watt,
No.
Dr. Glenn.
Yes. All right, so the motion has passed. So thank you all very much for the conversation. And so, Mr. Rowe, we will ask that you make the amendment to her contract, and then that would be retro to January 1st. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all for that discussion. I appreciate that. Okay, so now it is time to move forward with the committee report. So it's time for the Program Services Committee report. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jones.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so,
Okay, I'm sorry. Help me out. Thank you. All right. Council members, please refer to your handout titled Program Services Committee Report and the information presented on page 39 of your handout. Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna ask that you speak up just a little bit.
Am I soft spoken today?
Yes.
I don't think it's page 39, it's page. Which page is it?
39. So the program services report is a handout.
Gotcha. All right. Please turn to page 39 in your council notebook. Our committee met on Tuesday, February 2nd, through the draft Family Support Services Strategic Framework and provide a recommendation for council action at today's meeting. What we're going to do, Madam Chair, so that we can move the discussion of each service line, I want us to consider the following recommendations: that we approve the Family Support Services Strategic Framework. Also, I want us to have a robust discussion of what they have provided us in terms of the different family services, family support services, categories of implementation, such that we can provide guidance to staff, such that based upon our final review and our final approval, that it would be armed with the types of things that we would want to see present in the scope of services, and such that we'll be able to ultimately come back, be able to provide a recommendation that empowers them to then complete the RFP, the scope of services, and subsequently share that with the public. All right, so if we will go first to our first handout, our first area, to increase resiliency and reduce the number of consequences of adverse childhood services.
39. But you're looking, well, no, it looks like this.
I got you. I knew where it was. I just, okay.
So I'd like, Mrs. Green, if you talk about the increased resilience and reduce the number of consequences and the recommendations contained therein over the next 3 years.
Yes, so you have the strategy there, as well as our theory of change reference, and of course, the theory of change was provided to you. So the first service line that we are suggesting, and it is a suggestion, under family support services are the establishment of family resource centers. The Program Services Committee had a robust discussion, and there you will find a description of what we are proposing. This will be done through an ITN process with a single vendor, with emphasis on ensuring that these resource centers are in the community, that they are using nationally recognized standards, that they are focusing on gathering places that are already in existence. So being close to proximity, in the close proximity of schools or churches or centers that are already there, in addition to being in proximity of transportation, because we know that that is an issue. Most importantly, and we added in this description, is that services that are provided can be provided in more than one way. So it could be provided there at the resource center, or most importantly, it can go to the family. So in their home, at their job, wherever it is that they need to be. So we are looking at trying to get an ITN out by August 2023 with an initial investment of 1.2 million. That same investment the following year, 1.2 billion, and getting a third center up by 24-25 for, and that would bring it up to 1.6 million. So we're looking at an initial investment of 4 million, with the final investment of 6.2 million. And that's to establish 2 in the first 2 fiscal years and add a third one in the third fiscal.
Now, what was one of Jen was the legitimate concern to the members of the council is that one, that there was accountability standards that would be evaluated on an annual basis to bring on each additional center. And we also wanted any respondent to do as a part of the scope of services was to refer back to what we know is, like, for lack of a better description, an overlay of what we have been able to discern both through our first assessment, the needs assessment. Being able to take that information and make certain that the family resource centers are finally tailored to meet the concerns as identified in those particular census tracts. So as you can imagine, although we're dealing with similarities in each family resource center and in each location, there are also specific issues of concern in each of those targeted communities. So that overlay, being able to be responsive and narrowly tailored to meet each community's need, we thought was important. So if we were to look at potentially identifying particular census tract areas, whether it were Bond, Providence, potentially Frenchtown, Griffin Heights, Springfield, each of those areas have their own set of circumstances. These family resource centers would be much like what we are trying to do in our schools with our community-based schools. That here now, these family resource centers will be able to provide a full retinue of services like wraparound services that help families with family self-sufficiency. Here now in these locations, working in cooperation with already anchor institutions found in those communities, we think we can really have a better chance at success. So as we talked about this is why I want us to have a conversation, because ultimately what we want to design is something that is born of what has been our efforts up until now. We see the culmination of our research, our conversations in the community. Here now we have the opportunity to equip them with what they've said that they need, and be able to equip these family resource centers to be the guide, to be the tool, the empowerment mechanism that these families have identified. So we're open to, did I capture that? Our discussion? So we're now open for additional conversation from our rest of our colleagues.
Mr. Judge Miller.
That's all right. You have to say all that. I was curious, would these be new construction? Because I'm just trying to envision, or would they be put in some facilities already kind of in place?
The respondents would be providing those descriptors, but no, it is not a new facility. It would be able to, they will more than likely be already existing facilities, but that are anchored, and again, I'm not trying to tell anybody how to write it. I don't want to put that out there, but we would want them to be sensitive. One of the things that, and you'll appreciate this, Judge, we realize that the target families that we serve have issues of trust. So that's why I'm making certain that the respondents identify anchor institutions where there is trust and the availability of space where people can come and be well served with both privacy and dignity, and be able to harness the needs that have not been present in the local, in that neighborhood or in that targeted area, we think is critical.
I love the concept, I'm just trying to conceptualize in my mind location where the ball will be there, but I like it.
In your book, behind the section, there are pretty strong descriptors of each of these programs. This is basically what we do.
No, go ahead, please.
What we reviewed at the, I'm really bad at walking the line, I promise. This is what we reviewed at the meeting, and the description that we followed, and we questioned this information, but it's gives you a sense a little bit of how the programs are developed, formatted, what the expectations are, and what the value is. And there's actually, in many of these, on the dollars invested, anticipated rate of return.
Ms. Cummings, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I've read through all of the proposals, and I want to commend the Program Services Committee just for their holistic approach in all of these areas, because it has the potential clearly of positively affecting our children, but then branch into our families as well. I like the nurturing part, the food desert consideration, and all of that is part of the various programs that are being proposed. I like all the concepts, but this is my question, I guess my concern. Each one of them says timeline for issuing a invitation to negotiate or request for proposal is August of 2023. So my question is, do we plan to have any summer programs for our children this summer? If we do an invitation to negotiate in August, I would imagine services won't be available until late fall. If we receive any responsive proposals. This is February, so we're talking several months down the road to August, but do we have any plans to have any services or any proposals on the streets so that we can service the children during the summer?
I believe we already have
Madam Chair, if I may. So, Councilmember Cummings, we actually have an RFA that we issued February 6th. So it was last week before last. My timing is off, but it is on,
okay.
And it is to cover two areas, summer learning and summer feeding. We actually.
Oh, I saw that. I did. I saw that.
Is scheduled to start with contracting on May 15th, and that programming will go through August 31st.
Oh, can I follow up question? So yeah, I saw those two. So we don't envision servicing or engaging as many service providers this summer as we did last summer, I take it. Am I correct? Because we're looking at staffing deficiencies and what have you.
Well, I don't know that I would go that far. I think that our RFA is definitely more narrow than our RFA was last summer.
Last year. Uh-huh.
However, when we did our informational session, we had 52, 53, maybe more organizations on there looking at their programming to see if they would apply. So I don't know that it would be accurate to say that we may not end up with a very similar amount of programs this summer.
Right. No, my question was, we don't envision, but we'll just have to wait and see who responds and who we deem responsive. Is that correct? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Joining us is coming, there will be summer opportunities, and then the expectation is that these will be on the ground in August of this year for families.
Okay. Okay, so it looks like we're on the road to have continuing services for the children and families.
Yes,
And that's
ma'am.
great. So I applaud you guys, Ms. Green. That's great.
Thank you.
Hey, hey, Commissioner, just so you know, I'm looking at the screen as though you're there, but your face. So in the budget itself, we budgeted in the summer as for this coming summer, like we did last summer. So to Ms. Green's point, it's a more narrow focus, but the dollars are there. So I think we're going to be able to serve at least as many, if not more.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Responsive, but yes, based on the dollars, we should be able to.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other comments with regards to the family support services proposal from the program services? I just want to comment, I am really excited about these strategies. A couple of them are near and dear to me, but I really like these family support services. I clearly remember that listening session, and there was one particular participant that was there, and her needs were unique and quite different. She was a grandmother taking care of a grandchild. She only had function of one hand. She obviously had some medical issues, so she wasn't able to use one hand. And her need was, I just need someone to do my granddaughter's hair, you know, and that was her particular need. And my thought immediately went to that little girl who had nobody to do her hair. And I thought about the self-esteem issues that she would have to have her hair look crazy as she goes to school every day. And that, you know, we wouldn't normally think about that, but to have somebody be able to walk into a center and say, my need is, I need somebody to take care of my child's hair, that could change that young lady's life, you know, and it could change her grandmother's life for having some, you know, so I'm excited about these facilities to be able to just meet their needs in their neighborhood, because that's what these things are all about. So I'm going to comment on that. And then I'm really excited about the non-traditional childcare services, these after-hour services. That would have impacted me personally as a pharmacist. I've worked many, many nights till 10 o'clock, and my husband was a coach. And man, if my mother-in-law wasn't there, we would have really been struggling to find childcare. That's the reason why I left Walgreens, because I needed somebody to take care of my children if I had to work till 10 o'clock. So, you know, and I was a professional, you know, and I'm only thinking about people who really struggle with, how do I take care of my children after hours in a safe place? So I'm really excited about everything that's here, but I just wanted to highlight those two things. Any other comments before? Okay. All right, please. Oh, Ms. Cummings, is your hand raised? No? Okay.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. So, Mr. Jones, thank you so much. I hope, did you intend to go through all of them? I'm hoping that everybody had an opportunity to read through all of them, but.
We did.
Your desire is, madam.
Okay.
I'm prepared to offer on behalf of the service for acceptance other family support services in that based upon our. Yes, ma'am.
No, I'm sorry. No. I saw it. I just wanted to make sure the public comment was open.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do I now call for public comment?
No. We got it. Yeah, we got it.
All right. I offer a motion for acceptance of the Program Services Committee recommendation to subsequently empower the staff to come back and put these RFPs on the street for our family support services recommendations.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Jones and a second by Mr. Watts to accept the recommendations put forward from the Program Services Committee for moving forward with these different categories for the family support services. So it's time for public comment. Do we have a public comment? Okay.
Yes, you have public comment from Ms. Melissa Perez.
Ms. Perez, welcome.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for welcoming me and allowing me to come to this meeting. So first I want to say, I think that your idea is fantastic for the Family Resource Center. I originally am from New York City, where I worked in family resource centers. I had a lovely conversation with Ms. Clay yesterday just about things that I've seen as a clinician, as a therapist, as someone who's done in-home community work, clinical case management. The Family Support Center, family support programs are incredibly dear to me as a mom with now an adult child, but he was in special ed since first grade, with mental health issues, with behavioral health issues, very limited support, learning how to navigate a system that I didn't understand, the education system, learning how to navigate the mental health system, medical system, learning how to backlash as a woman of color, as a young mom, and New York City is a whole other animal. So I guess just some of the things that I would like to add are my hopes for the program, because again, it is an amazing program and lives have been changed in the most beautiful of ways. And I've taken part in those programs and I've worked in those programs, traveling to people's homes, taking them to the doctor, advocating for their social security services, welfare, IEP meetings, children who needed residential services, children who needed, all mental health services, autistic children, learning all of these different foundational skills to help, not just help the family, but also teach them how to continue advocating once we pull out of the home, right? Because we don't stay there forever. My main focus with every family was you are the expert of what happens with your family. I'm here to support your goals, whatever that is. My concern and my hope, as you guys have not totally established now, which agencies are going to help you with that, is that you wisely choose and please don't be offended by my choice of words. I'm trying to say this as nice as I can, because I've been, I've experienced, right? Choosing agencies that value your vision, value what you are trying to bring into the community, because it is already, as you said, families are already hurt, they're disheartened, they've been traumatized. They come with so many defense mechanisms because of what they've already experienced. And it's not always fair and it's not always kind. And when you do get a kind person, sometimes they don't stay long enough, right? There's always high turnover rate because the work is demanding. It's mentally demanding. It's emotionally demanding, physically demanding for the family and for the worker, right? But what I have witnessed and what I have seen and what I have worked in multiple agencies are agencies who on paper value the vision. But when reality meets the road, right? When the rubber meets the road, that doesn't always translate the same way. And families are not always treated fair when they walk through the door because of their situation, or because, oh, I know what neighborhood you're from, or I knew your grandmother, and so we need to stop stigmatizing our families, right? Whether that's your neighbor, the lady that cooks at church, whoever they are, right? And understand that at the end of the day, right, this is a family that wants to survive. They want to give their kids the best medical treatment, education, and opportunities possible. And sometimes we don't always do our best, although we mean to do our best, right? We write these visions, we write these proposals in the most beautiful way. Our hearts are in the right place. But sometimes theory and application doesn't always come out as great. So I want to urge you to be as due diligent as possible. And I know I sound very passionate, but this is something very dear to me. And I shared a lot of that with Ms. Clay yesterday. It is a very dear altogether program, and yeah.
Right time. I
Okay.
give you a moment.
So yeah, with that, just please, and I already signed up to volunteer, but I'm more than willing to help in any way that I can.
Ms. Perez, thank you so very much. And I can hear the passion from your comments. Thank you very much. All right. So we currently have a motion on the table to accept the recommendations from the Program Services Committee to move forward with this. We have a second. It is now time for us to vote. Ms. Claire, I'm going to ask you to do a quick roll call again for me.
So just from a dollar amount, one, I support it, but it's $4 million a year in the first year. Oh, God, page 39, I know. And then it goes to 4.9 and then 6.2 in year 3. Is it the idea that, because that's a huge chunk of the money, and when you add to it a summer program, that this is going to go for year 4, 5, and 6, or it's just recurring for those 3 years, and then we'll be looking for other things? I mean, are we kind of locking in, because this is kind of our budget?
As you can imagine, the good part about this will be an annual review. Then upon the end of this term, we'll come back. We may very well, based upon what we will have seen, having collected data over those 3 years, we'll then make a determination as a board, a full council, as to whether or not it would be a program that is worth continuing or perhaps revamping, retooling. But at the end of the 3 years, we'll come back to look at it again.
Yeah, actually, I couldn't imagine. That's why I was asking the question. The $6 million that we're talking about, again, when you, I mean, and I'm, you know, that's it. That's, I mean, again, I think it's been well thought out. It's clear what we're proposing, but it kind of leaves.
We're not much money.
Yeah, not much money. I mean, like, that's it.
Please, yes.
So the thought is we were actually meeting about scope of work and the development of how this moves forward. So first, let me say our desire is not to be in the property ownership business. So more than likely, the centers would be in places that already exist. So to your question, number one. Number two, the way we would like to structure the ITN is such that it offers the opportunity for partners to come in. So very easily, even though everything is moving well, we could very easily end up in a situation by year 3 that our investment doesn't have to be as much, because now there is a partner who has come in and they have a part of that investment as well. So we may not, so this is what we think the investment will be over the course of the years. But if I hate to say if we do this right, if we do this in the thoughtful way that we have already started, we may actually be reducing our investment to free that money up for something else, because we now have partners who are able to share in the cost of the programming and the operation of the center.
And I neglected to mention that because we talked about that. In fact, we use Career Source as an example, because we talk about family self-sufficiency. These family resources could also be hubs for other partners like Career Source to help with job preparation, job identification. Even workforce development partners can also come in and be able to provide services to these families. And we would invite those persons. That's why the annual evaluation was so important. As we looked at those dollars, we wanted to make certain that we would identify other partners to come in and share in the burden, that we would see what types of services the families were responsive to. So I forgot to mention that as a part of our conversation.
So this proposes an ITN for one single vendor. Is it contemplated that single vendor, that the ITN will go out on the street as a 1-year contract or a 3-year contract?
1 year, because we're talking about, correct?
Well, it could be a so let me go back. The council approved the ability to do 1, 2, and 3-year contracts with renewals. We may go in with a 2-year contract, but remember now, all of our contracting, you can not only negotiate, but if things aren't looking right, I can't say it like Chris says. it,
Which
but
requalifies.
If things aren't looking right, you can get out of it. The thought is though, many of the programs don't really show their movement until about year 3. So for this, we probably would want to look at a year 3 contract, but we are not encumbering all of the funds in the first year. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
We're encumbering the $4 million in the first year, and then I see the budget, that's what we would be encumbering. But we are, and by the way, if we're gonna do this, and we're selecting one vendor to perform this.
Well, let me back up. Let me back up. We're selecting one vendor for the Family Resource Center. Right. That may not be the vendor that is selected for the other pieces.
Okay, right.
Okay, but I
Right,
understood.
right. But if forget the one vendor, just if I am bidding on the Family Resource Center, and I know that I need a physical a plant to house whatever the services I'm performing, and I saw in the language, and I'm not going to keep flipping back, but when I read it, it said it contemplates going out into, it's not just come to my place. If I'm putting together a proposal, I am not, and I want to give you guys the, whoever it is, let's say it's me bidding on the CSC work. I want that 3 years, because if I don't have that 3 years, obviously if I'm not meeting the terms of the contract, we have the ability to pull it. But assuming I know I'm going to meet the terms of the contract, if we don't bid it for 3 years, I think it's going to cost us a little bit more, because I know I have to lease physical space. To Mr. Jones's point, it could be in 5 or 6 areas around the community. So I just, what we're voting on, one, is a large amount of money and a huge chunk percentage-wise of our budget, especially when you add it with the summer funding. And if we're going to do it, I kind of feel like we need to get the best deal, and the best deal would be to at least put it out on the street as a 3-year contract.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me back up. I thought we were talking about, I didn't know you were talking about the whole package. I thought we were just talking about the Family Resource Center piece. So I need to augment a little bit of what I'm saying. So yes, the $4 million is for all of these strategies. Yes. Each strategy is handled independently. And for the Family Resource Center in particularly, the thought is that the RFP more than likely would be for 3 years, and they would be responsible for setting the centers up. We can dictate in that ITN what their role is. So they manage it, they hire, they do all of that. But part of what they would be required to do is partner with those community organizations, particularly those that are housed in that area where that particular resource center is. And we would be doing procurement for some of these other services that may be in those centers or may not. So the center is just one piece of it. Each of these is separate, but that's the aggregate amount for the entire strategy. Yes, to your point. But all of these may not be.
So jumping on to Mr. Mitchell's comments, we need to remember what our duty is, which is to create longitudinal change in our community, centered around specifically children, right? So, and we do want to get money out there, and support programs are great, but they're episodic. And they touch a base, but they don't create this longitudinal change and impact in the lives of children. So going back to these long-term agreements, I agree with you. Absolutely, that we're better off. That's where we need to be very thoughtful about how we measure how we engage those 2-year agreements. There should be expectations in year 1, 2, and 3 that may not be the same year after year. Exactly. Year 1 may be more on the build-up and the enrollment. You need to make the curriculum development and performance, setting performance standards and baselines, and we measure against those baselines. That's the thoughtful stuff that we really need to make sure, you know, that's where, quite frankly, the juice is in this group. And we've been spending all this time to set this thing up. But the reality is this is what the fun stuff, what should be the fun stuff, the meaningful stuff. And going back to it, you know, we're looking at this as a 12-year plus gig, right? We got 12 years in this stuff.
10 years before.
Then now we're into.
Yeah, exactly. But we're going to be measured, and people are going to come back and they're going to vote on this. They're going to say, what have you done in your time frame? Have you really made a change? The same way we need to be looking at this in the same respect. We don't have to have day one immediate turnaround, because none of this is going to be day one turnaround. The issue is, what do we look like? What do these children and the opportunities they have look like years out? What is the trend line? But I think it's just, I agree that we don't need to take. This is not the summer programs. This is not an episodic event. These are long-term engagements that have long-term commitments to children.
Yes, absolutely. But and it's not a but, I think it's an and. I also don't want us to set an expectation that every contract we issue is going to be a regular contract. Because I think that that just may not be the case. For some of our big ones, absolutely. But there may be some that we want to do a 1 or a 2 year, because it might be an experimental stage. It might be. So I just want to make sure that there's not a message out there that the CSC will only issue 3-year contracts.
Well, also,
So that's
there should be a guarantee for a 3-year contract for anyone that's interested.
right.
Any other comments or discussion?
Madam Chair, if I could just. Council is absolutely authorized to enter into multi-year contracts that span more than one fiscal year. But any such contract must include a contract by which the contractor acknowledges that it's subject to annual appropriation of funds. And if the council in its full discretion determines not to fund in year 2, contractors.
All right, so let's move forward, guys. We have a motion on the table to accept this recommendation. It is now time for us to vote. So Ms. Clay, I'm going to ask you a quick roll call to accept the program committee recommendation to accept this strategy.
Judge Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Connor, Commissioner Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yeah.
Mr. Bryant,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Watt,
Yes.
Dr. Hill.
Yes. All right, the motion has passed. Thank you all so very much. And thank once again, Mr. Jones, for laying this out and sharing the strategy and, you know, representing the program services, what is it? The program services committee. Yeah, thank you so much. Mr. Mitchell, please.
I am excited about, you know, kind of getting something moving. In listening to Sika's point about we have the ability to dictate, especially in these family resource centers and in the other categories as well, our priorities. And our priorities were set, if you remember, at that meeting. And I just want to make sure that as these ITNs are being put out, and as there's a group that's evaluating the ITNs, that they are looking at what our priorities were, plain and simple. And number one was early childhood. So I felt weird voting for that. I mean, I feel good voting for it. I felt weird because there's nothing specific that I was voting on. I mean, I love the concept. I just want to make sure that the priorities that the 10 of us set remain our priorities. And again, as just one person, I must have put 9 gazillion little stickers next to early childhood. And it remains that way.
0305.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you for sharing that. And I do think the Program Services Committee is evaluating those priority areas. And I would add that we do spend quite a bit of time bringing up a strategy for that particular area And I did think that was their intent, Mr. Mitchell, and there were issues with it, you know, when it was presented. So they moved forward with what they had built already.
Okay, because
So, yeah,
that was the,
We started with that.
right. So they did start, it was started with
Back to the,
the committee.
yeah.
And so they moved forward with the next one that they had in place. So I do expect that would be coming soon. Okay, all right, wonderful. Thank you very much for that.
You're gonna have prepared students.
I think so. All right, so now this is an exciting part of the agenda. This is an open discussion area. So this is the request that we heard at the last several meetings, that we wanted an opportunity for this open discussion for things that were not on the agenda, that people want to bring up, and maybe, you know, some type of, you know, something that we didn't plan for, but gives us an opportunity to share our thoughts and our comments. So I just wanted to give everybody an opportunity for this open discussion. Please keep in mind, we're not voting on anything right now as a part of this, but we will be directing the staff to go back and provide more information on these things so that we can have an organized conversation or discussion about it. So Ms. Green, I know you have a couple of things that you want to surface. I'm going to give you an opportunity to bring them up, and then I'll open it up for the rest of the council members.
Okay, please. So I do have about 3 things. So the first one is, we are wanting to look at a date for a council retreat. I'm thinking we were thinking sometime after session. I can't remember whether we were thinking April, but council members, be on the lookout for a doodle poll. We want to try to come together for a retreat. We have some information we want to provide to you that we have not had a chance to do because we've been so busy with strategic planning and getting money out and all of that. But multiple hands. Yeah. All right. Who was first? I did not say. All right, Mr. Mark, and then we'll go to.
I like the idea of a retreat. Oftentimes retreats kind of take on a life of their own. I just would make a suggestion that it could be kept here locally and we keep the costs down, not do anything extravagant. If we can find space, I can find space that doesn't have a cost, et cetera. I know that probably this have to be a public.
I thought the retreat was going to be right
Okay,
here.
good. My point is this, oftentimes people think you have to go somewhere. And I would strongly suggest we make sure we keep this many dollars in the coffers for the kids and not spend it on us.
No, by retreat, I just meant a get together where we can really talk about and have some discussion time. There are a few exercises we want to take the council through. And I think this is just from my experience. The more that I know about a person, the more that I know from where they come. Not just icebreaker. I think it gets a little deeper than that. The better it is for me to understand your thought process and, you know, for us to congeal. So we're not talking about a retreat away anywhere other than right here in this building. We will either have lunch sponsored, or we may ask you to put in a little bit for lunch so that we don't have that cost. But just keep in mind, we're going to do a doodle poll casual. Everyone looks so beautiful, but we want you to be casual and come and be ready to do some bonding. So be on the lookout for the doodle poll on that. Mr. Jones.
Yes, I like retreats too, but I know the last time we had our retreat, we set the priorities for what would be our areas of support. My question now would be, what would this retreat accomplish?
I think this retreat.
That's critical for me.
Well, I think it goes even a little deeper. Now, while I have read and done all of that, I wasn't present for your first retreat. You didn't have an executive director at that time.
Okay.
And I think that it is always
The strategic planning. We're talking about strategic planning with Michelle. Yeah.
Oh, that was strategic planning. When you all set the priorities, you didn't have to. You set those 3 priorities?
No.
The dots.
Oh, that's what he's calling.
The dots.
Oh, yeah. That was strategic planning.
Yeah, that was a retreat, and I don't know has that been a year?
No.
That was.
Since I've been on the board, so.
I don't count it as a retreat. But again, if you all don't want to do a retreat, you can put that on the phone too. But I'd really like to have a time where we can congeal, where you can congeal with staff. We are here to work with you, and part of that is us knowing and understanding each other. So we promise not to take up a whole lot of time. But I think that it is important. And so I'm going to ask that you give me a little bit of deference and let's try to find a time where we can get together and do some things. We aren't going to waste your time, I promise. Mr. Jones. Okay.
I do like the idea of post session for 2 reasons. Session ends. Keep that in mind.
Yes.
2 things. One, it's very possible that there will be 2 new board members at that point. And it will be important to hear sort of some of their ideas. The 10 of us, regardless of whether or not there's, 2 new board members, also have sort of our minds have grown, at least I hope. And we may have different priorities and we may have different things that we would like to highlight. So while I think it's nice that we congeal, I think it's also a good follow-up to the July meeting where we did set our priorities. So I would like to focus, sure, a little on the not so substantive side, but I'd really like to sort of readdress that substantive side. So that we're setting we kind of know where we're heading and what our priorities are and we're following them. So I would ask that it be at least the end of May. Maybe we wait until after the school year ends. So you're looking at kind of I have children in school or K through 12. So I don't know when that ends, but I think it's middle of May, end of May, maybe shoot for the beginning of June.
So we'll do that. We'll send that doodle poll out. So that was number 1. Number 2, back to the early learning, the high quality early learning discussion. So I don't know if you've been following session, but FACT, the Florida Alliance on Children's Councils and Trusts, part of their function is to advocate and lobby on behalf of children's services councils. So there are 2 things that have come up. So the first one is regarding high quality early learning and the child tax credit, which we are expecting that there will be a bill filed for the reestablishment or establishment, whichever way you want to look, for the child tax credit that gives some tax relief to businesses that help to provide a subsidy to their employees for high quality childcare. If that passes, it would be about $3,600 a year that an employer can provide to their employees. That money has to be used at a contracted early childhood center that is contracted with the ELC or that has a class score of 4 or higher. So with that takes us right back to our high quality early learning conversation. I'm so glad that came up, because if that passes, then I think as a council, we have to come back and look at how we help to ensure that we have enough centers in our community that can take advantage of that. And so when you think about it, you now have the child tax credit for the family. And if that family also qualifies for school readiness, we're really talking about a good financial infusion that can help that child learn. So I just wanted to put that on the radar. And then the last thing legislatively came up this week. So there have been bills filed. They are House Bill 731 and Senate Bill 698. They were filed by Senator Ingloya. And they concern special independent special taxing districts. And the long or short of it is that the taxing district would have to take to referendum in a general election to get voter approval to raise the millage rate. There is still a lot of work that has to be done. Those bills have not been assigned to committee, but the effect could be that, so let me say this, the bills contradict what we have to do in trim. They currently contradict. And so we have the fact a lobbyist with Valor Partners that's looking into that, the fact general counsel, John Moyle, that is looking to have conversations with the bill sponsors. We think that one sentence would clarify all of it. I'll bring you more information, but as is, it could definitely affect millage rate and how that's approved and voters approving it and all of that good stuff. So I did want to bring those to your attention as well. And as I get more information, I will share it with you.
So just one clarification, kind of correction. The tax credit does not give a tax. There's not a tax advantage to a business. It's a business's decision as to allotting a certain amount of money. So it is not like they get a tax break because they're getting. It's just it is how their tax dollars are actually channeled. So.
That's all. Thank you very much. And I do have a question. So maybe as part of this retreat that we have, maybe a little bit more clarification on how these things will impact what we do and maybe designing a strategy around it. So I'm really concerned about the last one that you just emphasized, because if we have to take it to the public to vote on any millage changes, that significantly impacts what we can do or how we move forward.
So there are lots of questions. So of course we all read it, and everyone who read it different. So there was the thought that when I read it as if the council comes together and wants to raise the millage rate, go through everything, they want to raise the millage rate for a subsequent fiscal year. If the general election is in November, that is already in the fiscal year that you would be thinking about. So really, it wouldn't be raising it for that fiscal year. It would be raising it for the next one. That's how I read it. Someone else read it to say, if you wanted to raise your millage rate over what was statutorily required, which is 0.5. So that's when you take it back to referendum. But then the other side of that is the statute dictates what the maximum is. So how could you then go to the public to raise it higher than that? Then there were others that said it was literally to just raise it one little bit within the year. So there are still several interpretations. And I figured since we have this,
you've got somebody from Valor Partners too.
we do. Christy is doing it. So yeah.
Thank you.
So what we can do for the retreat is plan a post-session review. Yes. And if there is anything, but you'll know way before that, if there's anything that requires us to do things.
Thank you. All right, this is what we have asked for. Any other agenda items or topics that any of the council members would like to have during this open discussion?
I'm going to go back to that early childhood, and I just kind of, I don't know that I can say it enough. Again, just 1 out of 10. It is, when I first heard the idea of the Children's Services Council and was an advocate for it, I sat there and I thought, all right, if somebody gave me $10, how would I spend that $10 based on what was contemplated in the referendum that was put before the land? I thought about it and I was like, I kind of went back to my years when we were first implementing the A+ plan. Forget about what your opinion might be of the A+ plan. I liked it. It's not perfect, but it was an acceptance, hard acceptance, but an acceptance that you are probably not going to really reforming education, which would be comparable to really trying to make a difference, move the needle for children and families in Leon County. Probably weren't going to hit any home runs with 17. Doesn't mean ignore them. Just probably weren't going to do it. It's really where you were going to get the most bang for your buck is at the very beginning. And when I love PACE. I personally contribute to it. I love it, and I want to keep funding it. So I'm not suggesting that we not. But when you look at the percentages of dollars, I thought to myself, of the 10, gosh, we should put, 7 of them at the beginning. And I'm not a master of what that age group should be, is 0 to 3 or 0 to 5. But I know this. I think about this lady on every vote I take and how hard she has it and how much harder Pineview Elementary and others in that same area, how hard they have it. And it's all because, not because there's something wrong with those kids. They just go into school not ready. And if we can get them ready for Miss Connor, I know they'll be ready for, the middle school teacher and the high school teacher, and will be really productive members of the community. We will have done our part. So there's my 2 cents.
Mr.
Yeah, my comment is, there is magic in 0 to 3, 0 to 5. 80% brain development, 0 to 3, 90% 0 to 5. I mean, I went to a thing this morning and they were talking about our community and they were talking about 3rd grade reading scores. And that's a measure that we take. 3rd grade reading scores, if it's phenomenally low, by the way, across this community. Shockingly low, in my opinion. That means we fail. Because we need to give every child in this community a fighting chance to be successful. Every kid is born in this world with hopefully a chance to do something with his or her life. And I'm not trying to everybody be a rocket scientist, but doing something meaningful, being a productive member of society, having a safe environment where they don't have to worry about, some of the things kids have to worry about. So, and I agree, these programs, and that's why I say go back to the episodic things versus the longitudinal things. The longitudinal things are the ones that are the most key. And when you talk about 0 to 3 and 0 to 5, and so much brain development in that period of time, that's our biggest chance to make a difference in people's lives. That is our biggest chance to have an impact. And we do. That's what we all hope. Every kid in this world is born, my grandmother used to tell us, and I don't want to sound overly religious, but all of us are born equal in the eyes of God. We're all children of our Father in heaven. That's what everybody's equal. But yet everybody's given an equal chance. And our role here is to give every kid who is equal at birth an opportunity to be successful in life. That's that's a little hokey, but it's meaningful stuff. This is really meaningful stuff if we do it right.
I do think that's our priority, our number one priority area. Mr. Mitchell.
Yeah. And call me
Mr. Miller. Judge Miller, so sorry.
We all in the mind.
I apologize. Judge Miller.
In the cases that I deal with on a regular basis, I'm dealing with the dependency cases. I'm dealing with the abused, neglect, and abandoned children through the Department of Children and Families. Then I'm dealing with family law. Then I'm dealing with domestic violence cases. And so one of the things I was excited about when we went through that, and we list out more so fundamental is the engagement, because you can engage the child. The child can have the best system as far as you and I had talked about this. You can have the best system as far as the daycare, excellent daycare. But when that child goes home, you can put any child that's excelling, but you put them in a home life, in a home environment. That's where the rubber meets the road is. You got to combine services with the child, with that family. Because if you don't really deal with that family issue, we can sit here and we can throw money, and we got to solve that piece, and that involves engagement with churches, engagement within those families, because, I see it. I deal with broken families every day. That is the rubber meets the road.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that, Judge Miller. I completely understand what you're saying, and we have talked about that. Fixing the foundation of the families is really critical, and I struggle with how are we gonna meet that need, but I hear you loud and clear, and I think we can address that.
wanted to add to that. What was beautiful to me is to hear someone that's not in education to feel as passionate as I do. But that is one of the critical things that I do. Everything that we talked about, I see this every single day. And preparing our kids, Brooke can speak to this in the fact that we try everything we can to get our kids in some type of schooling experience before they actually get to kindergarten. Yet in almost all Title I schools experiences, 40 to 50% of these kids come to us and they've never gone to school. So that means they're starting off academically as a 2-year-old, but in a 5-year-old spot in kindergarten. So that in itself kind of sets the stage for what happens when they become this 3rd grader. At my school, for example, 35% of our kids are proficient, typically. It ebbs and flows, but that means 65% of our kids are not reading on grade level. That's a hard pill to swallow. But what's even harder is to provide the services to remediate, to fill in the blanks along the way. We don't have enough staff to be able to give 65%. We do it, but we could do it so much better if it was a smaller amount of kids, is what I'm getting at. So the point is, it's twofold. It's preparing our early learners as early as possible and getting our moms engaged in what happens starting at birth. The moment they're born, how can we expose them to literacy and all of those things that happen before they land in kindergarten? But to your point, it's equally as important in today's vote for our family services. That I encounter every day, because no matter what kind of schooling experience they have, they can come to school every single day. But if they're not going home to this great environment, or they're homeless, or they're living in cars, that impacts if they get what we're willing to give every single day. So all of this together is very impactful. But for me, my whole purpose of being here was to make sure that kids that I serve get the supports along the way, but literally from birth until they enter our school in kindergarten. So thank y'all for thinking.
No, I appreciate that. And your point resonates with me because, I struggle with prioritizing because so many times they have to happen at the same time, and no matter how much we provide education for 0 to 3, if the family's broken, it's going to fall through the cracks, so there are so many of these things that have to happen parallel with each other if we're going to catch these kids. And I think we need to think long and hard about that. So I agree with prioritizing, but man, a lot of these things have to go hand in hand. And if they don't go hand in hand, they're going to drop. Somebody's going to drop somewhere. So I'm hoping we can address some of these things as we have our strategic planning or retreat in the future. So thank you for those comments. Okay, anything, Mr. Jones? Oh, Mr. Jones, yes, sir.
Chair, as we talk about our retreat, one of the things I think that is also valuable is that we embrace what is, by virtue of our creation, the authority to be able to continue to message the importance of meeting the needs of our children and families. I know we have money designated for marketing, and I don't know if we've talked or if we've informed staff about how we want to continue to empower and manage our brand. But I think there's, beyond just any victory laps for the impacts that we will do, there's constant messaging about children and ways in which our community can be involved. That may not require any money from us, but our influence. I think that if we think about when we were kids, how powerful messaging was. Yeah. I am cautious about starting a fire in the woods because of Smokey the Bear. Right? But that message still resonates. I can still remember the commercial about looting when the Native American had the tear that fell from his eye. Well, here now we have an opportunity as the Children's Services Council to be a part of putting forth a message to our community about children. imagine if something that we were to communicate to the public, and we can talk about how that nuanced message can come from us. But imagine if volunteerism went up. I think about the late Steve Uhlfelder and his mentoring program. We would encourage mentoring and people to come and volunteer in our schools. But it was a message that we owned as the Children's Services Council. There's a certain gravitas born of this opportunity that we enjoy. And I just think that being a part of that messaging might be a part of what we can discuss is our brand moving forward and how we make that, how we help in that messaging, such that stories like what you said, and the impacts that we know we can have. There are things that regular people can do that doesn't require our money that can have impact, and we can be a part of that messaging.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap this section up, but this, I think, proves the need for a retreat because there are a lot of different things that we need to address. Is Ms. Cunningham right?
Yes, and Madam Chair, just very briefly, I just enjoyed listening to all of my fellow council members and our chair, our executive director, and it's just very clear to me that we've got a great group of 10 council members that really are concerned, genuinely concerned about elevating the status of our children and our families here in Leon County. And I just don't think we could have had a better initial council to be addressing these needs. And I'm excited about what has been set forth today by the Program Services Committee. And I commended them earlier, and I just want to continue to commend them because I just believe we're going to start seeing it come together for our children. I think that we're all passionate about our children, and passion plus design programs to fill specific needs that we know are needed here in Leon County to elevate our children, we can't go wrong. So I just want to commend all the council members for their great comments. I couldn't say it any better than all of you. And I just like to adopt everybody's statement and say, I think we're moving forward. And I feel good about what's going to transpire in 2023. And I think 2023 is going to be a very great year for our children under your leadership, Dr. Glenn, and under the leadership of our executive director, and with all my great fellow council members. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thank you very much for that. I would like to just mention one thing before we move forward with our next meeting date. I do want to remind the council members, when we first started back in 2021, we heard often from the public comments that there were two major requests that people came to the meeting and they had. One was that we had African-American male representation on the board, which we didn't have at the time, and I think that's since been resolved. But the other request that I heard over and over and over again was the need for children or some type of youth representation to be a part of this, of what we do and how we discuss or the services that we bring forward. I don't know if any of you remember that, but I remember that request. I would like for the staff to think of how do we engage an advisory council of kids, maybe a revolving type of process, or how do we ensure that children are a part of tapping in or being a part of the conversation or coming up with solutions of certain things. I know we have the listening sessions, but that's hit or miss. It really is hit or miss who attends, who doesn't, but I would like to see something a little bit more structured. So yes, Mr. White.
I remember that comment or that question as well. Just let's balance the conversation we just had, though. The focus is going to be largely on young children and put in there. That's the voice. If you have a voice of a different group of children, there's going to be a shift. There is some potential. I don't want to say that. I'm not articulating this well. But if you want children advocates from that sector, remember 0 to 5 have a hard time advocating for themselves.
Absolutely.
You need to have adults that advocate.
I agree. Then,
So I just there's a little bit of
yeah.
there could be a sway that may not be concert with this.
I do think
Conversation
we have
we
to
just had.
find a way to get the voices of those that need to be impacted. And I think we do a good job, but I would like to get some more community involvement in an organized way, is my request. Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I'd be happy to discuss, work with the staff on that. I can imagine that, we have a student advisory council that's made up of all of our student leaders from all of our high schools, right? Again, no different than what we already currently have with a student member of the school board. Their presence is felt. And then one of the things I think is important about it, we equip them to continue to be a part of, as ambassadors, to continue our message. Again, this goes back to what I just described. Our messengers can come from a variety of sources. Imagine if our young people are informed of what kind of conversations are being had to their benefit for children their age and children younger than them. They then are equipped to then go share that with, for example, the rest of the student advisory council that serves our district, are made aware of the work we do here. Then we've got a younger generation equipped and empowered and educated on these issues that we know are very, very important, but they should be made aware of. So if nothing else, but their representation, it certainly should be welcome. I'd be happy to talk with you about how you can engage with them on our vision.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. All right, let's move forward. It is now time for us to talk about our next meeting date. Our next council meeting is scheduled for Thursday, March 23rd. Thank you, Ms. Clay, for resending the invitation. That is at 4 o'clock. Same location right here. So I want to make sure everybody's.
You're on that day.
My son, remember, mine is the 22nd, yours is the 23rd with my son.
Oh, okay.
So I will bring the cake.
Okay.
It will be Mr. Jones's 31st birthday.
Happy anniversary.
Celebrating your 22nd anniversary. All right, but that is on the calendar. You have a comment?
No, I just want to.
Oh, please. Go ahead. Well, tomorrow we have the grand opening here for this particular event, for this building. So I do hope everybody is able to come. So I do know that the ribbon cutting is at 10 a.m. We have, let's see, Mr. Watts, Mr. Mitchell are on the agenda. So I'm looking forward to the ribbon. So have you agreed to?
I was thinking you.
No.
Did not? No?
You're on the agenda to do the welcome.
For the 3 o'clock or the 10 o'clock?
It's 10 a.m. So, okay, so that needs, that's a discussion. Yeah, that needs to happen. Okay. Okay. She did send an email.
Let me say, I promise you, I do not know what is going on with our outreach. Because we are sending emails, people are getting them, we're sending calendar notices and taking notices off the calendar. So we will be getting somebody in here to see what is going on with our outlook.
Please,
Okay.
Because
I sent an email.
Now, did you send it today?
No,
So we did that.
last week.
So we did that.
We're not getting bounce backs, but something.
So anyway, so the ribbon cutting is at 10 a.m. Mr. Mitchell may or may not be there.
Yes,
Okay, so we'll discuss that. Okay, all right, thank you. And then the open house is from 3 to 6.
Not
Okay, all right, so that is also here. So I do invite everybody to please be in attendance if you possibly can. I know the staff are looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to this too. So I hope everybody's able to attend. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that? The screen, okay. So for our agenda for our next meeting, currently we have the community impact story. We have another group that will be here with us. And then the scope of works for the family support services. So that will give us an opportunity to look hard at, what is included as a part of those. So that's an agenda item.
And let me clarify, because we have 5 different ones, we will present the ones that we work through. Because now we're going to be moving into the next strategic framework piece. So this starts the cycle.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. That's all I have so far that's on that agenda, but you all will be notified in advance if there are any other agenda items. So at this time, we are open for member comments. Any member comments?
One, and that's just, I don't know, because Mr. Rowe wasn't at our executive committee. I would love some sort of it mirrored counties, it can mirror the states, but some sort of a policy on travel, as well as appropriate use of the CSC dollars. And again, I don't have a preference as to where we get it, but I just think we should have a policy.
Guiding expenditures.
Yes, sir.
And you're requesting that he brings that to the executive council?
And not as I don't want, I'm not looking for, I'm looking at you only because I can grab the DMS one. I can't get the counties. I'm sure it's there somewhere, but yes, just one that you could share with the council, see if people have an opinion on it, and create a policy. For what's appropriate to use CSC taxpayer dollars on it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that request. Thank you very much. Any other member comments? No? All right, everybody. It is now 5:53 and our meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all very much. Thanks for your time today. Thank you, Ms. Cummings, for joining us via Zoom.